I don't know if he would have liked the term or not, but frankly, James Thurber was as gifted as getting pissed off and drawing hilarity from his anger as any other writer. Nor could anyone get more mileage from a small acorn of complaint. Consider what he penned for the November 17, 1934 edition of The New Yorker, which was then republished in his 1935 collection, The Middle-Aged Man on the Flying Trapeze. I'll be reading, as usual, from the American Library, Thurber Writings and Drawings, edited by Garrison Keillor. The entire story is based on one quote from one scene from one 1927 play written by the Free Association-style writer Gertrude Stein. Pigeons on the grass, alas, pigeons on the grass, alas, short, longer grass, short, longer, shorter, yellow grass, pigeons, large pigeons on the shorter, longer, yellow grass, alas, pigeons on the grass. See if you can tell how he feels about that in tonight's story, There's an Owl in My Room by James Thurber. I saw Gertrude Stein on the screen of a newsreel theater one afternoon, and I heard her read that famous passage of hers about pigeons on the grass, alas. The sorrow is, as you know, Miss Stein's. After reading about the pigeons on the grass, alas, Miss Stein said, "This is a simple description of a landscape I have seen many times." I don't really believe that is true. Pigeons on the grass, alas, may be a simple description of Miss Stein's own consciousness, but it is not a simple description of a plot of grass on which pigeons have alighted, are alighting, or are going to alight. A truly simple description of the pigeons alighting on the grass of the Luxembourg Gardens, which I believe is where the pigeons alighted, would say of the pigeons alighting there only that they were pigeons alighting. Pigeons that alight anywhere are neither sad pigeons nor gay pigeons. They're simply pigeons. It is neither just nor accurate to connect the word alas with pigeons. Pigeons are definitely not alas. They have nothing to do with alas, and they have nothing to do with hooray, not even when you tie red, white, and blue ribbons on them and let them loose at band concerts. They have nothing to do with mercy me or isn't that fine either. White rabbits, yes, and Scotch terriers and blue jays and even hippopotamuses, but not pigeons. I happen to have studied pigeons very closely and carefully, and I have studied the effect, or rather the lack of effect, of pigeons very carefully. A number of pigeons alight from time to time on the sill of my hotel window when I am eating breakfast and staring out the window. They never alas me. They never make me feel alas. They never make me feel anything. Nobody and no animal and no other bird can play a scene so far down as a pigeon can. For instance, when a pigeon on my window ledge becomes aware of me sitting there in a chair in my blue polka dot dressing gown, worrying, he pokes his head far out from his shoulders and peers sideways at me, for all the world, Miss Stein might surmise, like a timid man peering around the corner of a building, trying to ascertain whether he's being followed by some hoofed fiend or only by the echo of his own footsteps. And yet, it is not, for all the world, like a timid man peering around the corner of a building trying to ascertain whether he's being followed by a hoofed fiend or only by the echo of his own footsteps. And that is because there is no emotion in the pigeon and no power to cause emotion. A pigeon looking is just a pigeon looking. When it comes to emotion, a fish compared to a pigeon is practically beside himself. A pigeon peering at me doesn't make me sad or glad or apprehensive or hopeful. With a horse or a cow or a dog, it might be different. It would be especially different with a dog. Some dogs peer at me as if I had just gone completely crazy, or as if they had just gone completely crazy. I can go so far as to say that most dogs peer at me that way. This creates in the consciousness of both me and the dog a feeling of alarm or downright terror, and legitimately permits me to work into a description of the landscape, in which the dog and myself are figures, a note of emotion. Thus, I should not have minded if Miss Stein had written, "Dogs on the grass, look out, dogs on the grass, look out, dogs on the grass, look out, Alice." That would be a simple description of dogs on the grass. But when any writer pretends that a pigeon makes him sad or makes him anything else, I must instantly protest that this is a highly specialized, fantastic impression created in an individual consciousness, and that therefore it cannot fairly be presented as simple description of what actually was to be seen. People who do not understand pigeons, and pigeons can be understood only when you understand that there is nothing to understand about them, should not go around describing pigeons or the effect of pigeons. Pigeons come closer to a zero of impingement than any other birds. Hens embarrassed me the way my old Aunt Hattie used to when I was 12, and she still insisted I wasn't big enough to bathe myself. Owls disturb me. If I am with an eagle, I always pretend that I'm not with an eagle, and so on, down to swallows at twilight who scare the hell out of me. But pigeons have absolutely no effect on me. They have absolutely no effect on anybody. They couldn't even startle a child. That is why they are selected from among all birds to be let loose with colored ribbons attached to them at band concerts, library dedications, and christenings of new dirigibles. If anybody let loose a lot of owls on such an occasion, there would be rioting and catcalls and whistling and fainting spells and throwing of chairs and the Lord only knows what else. From where I am sitting now, I can look out the window and see a pigeon being a pigeon on the roof of the Harvard Club. No other thing can be less what it is not than a pigeon can, and Miss Stein, of all people, should understand that simple fact. Behind the pigeon I am looking at, a blank wall of tired gray bricks is stolidly trying to sleep off oblivion. Underneath the pigeon, the cloistered windows of the Harvard Club are staring in horrified bewilderment at something they have seen across the street. The pigeon is just there on the roof, being a pigeon, having been and being a pigeon, and what is more, always going to be, too. Nothing could be simpler than that. If you read that sentence aloud, you will instantly see what I mean. It is a simple description of a pigeon on a roof. It is only with an effort that I am conscious of the pigeon, but I am acutely aware of a great sulky red iron pipe that is creeping up the side of the building, intent on sneaking up on a slightly tipsy chimney which is shouting its head off. There is nothing a pigeon can do or be that would make me feel sorry for it or for myself or for the people in the world, just as there is nothing I could do or be that would make a pigeon feel sorry for itself. Even if I plucked his feathers out, it would not make him feel sorry for himself, and it would not make me feel sorry for myself or for him. But try plucking the quills out of a porcupine, or even plucking the fur out of a jackrabbit. There is nothing a pigeon could be, or can be, rather, which could get into my consciousness like a fumbling hand in a bureau drawer and disarrange my mind or pull anything out of it. I bar nothing at all. You could dress up a pigeon in a tiny suit of evening clothes and put a tiny silk hat on his head and a tiny gold-headed cane under his wing and send him walking into my room at night. It would make no impression on me. I would not shout, "Good God Almighty, the birds are in charge!" But you could send an owl into my room dressed only in the feathers it was born with and no monkey business, and I would pull the covers over my head and scream. No other thing in the world falls so far short of being able to do what it cannot do as a pigeon does, of being unable to do what it can do too, as far as that goes. There's an Owl in My Room by James Thurber. That's Countdown. I'm Keith Olbermann. Good night and good luck.